Welcome to the self-development section for tonight. Today we'll discuss frequencies from the lenses of productivity, spirituality, and mindfulness. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen again. Okay. So last week we started discussing this wonderful self-help book called Managing Your Day-to-Day by Jocelyn Glee. I discussed an insight found in the book about how everything has frequencies. All the environments we exist in, including all of us, we have our own unique frequencies, and there's an interaction between these frequencies, between frequencies of people, between frequencies of people and environments. So today we will look at frequencies from these three perspectives of productivity, spirituality, and mindfulness, and we'll try to discuss some tips that the author's given us to make the most of all of these differing and diverse frequencies. Okay, so harnessing our frequencies for productivity. Let's start with the most obvious frequency of rhythm that we see every day. It is called the everyday, right? A new day happens daily, and assuming you rest at night, wake up in the morning. The morning is when your mind, your body, they're at their most alert, and your emotions, they're also the most stable. They're not yet disturbed by, again, the vibrations or the frequencies of your day, right? So the author shared that this time of the morning is really the best for us to get done with the most important work for our day. So the author suggests if we work in a corporate environment, we should block off our time in the morning and dedicate that time to do work that needs our focus, that needs our concentration, creativity. So if given a choice of, let's say reading a book, if you're a student, reading a chapter versus maybe talking to your group for discussing your school project, you should do the former. You should read your chapter in the morning. If you're somebody who goes to bed at night and wakes up in the morning, that is, right? And this sounds like a simple insight, but again, the morning time is very important. And the next insight, I think, helps us talk a bit more about how to make the most of our mornings. The author shares that the optimum span of attention for all of us is approximately 90 minutes. And so let's say I have a task at work that needs me to work on it for, let's say, more than 90 minutes, more than 1.5 hours, right? So if I work on it, let's say for 45, 50 minutes, what's happening is my body, my mind, they spent some time getting used to that work. They spent some time getting warmed up. But if I stopped at the 45th or the 50th mark, I'm not using my focus to its best extent. I'm wasting my focus because I didn't use it. I worked for only 50 minutes. So the rest 40 odd minutes of my focus, they're going to be wasted. Or if I do come back to that task, I'll have to go through the whole process of warming my mind and my body up again. Maybe it won't last as long as it did the first time, but that period definitely is there. Something else that the author shares is, apart from these 90-minute chunks, we should also give our breaks real importance, because it's during these breaks that our minds, our bodies recharge from the energy that they spent in these 90 minutes. So the author shares the best way is to make the most of our mornings and of our days in general is, right, by blocking off, especially the mornings, for good work, for intense work. And even when we do that, when we block off the whole time, we should make sure to work 90-minute chunks, and then we should take breaks. So the first break between the first two 90-minute chunks, it should be around 10 minutes. And the second break should be 15 to 30 minutes, which also lines up well around lunchtime, right? So if we do that, if we focus, if we adopt this rule of 90-minute work chunks split by breaks of 10 and 15 or 30 minutes, we make the most of our spans of attention. We don't burn ourselves out, and we also don't waste our attention spans. Something else that the author shares is the importance of lining tasks that complement each other. So let's say I had to work, right, on programming in the morning. So let's say I have two more tasks. I need to continue work programming on something else, and I also need to work on a presentation, right? Let's say I need to work on this presentation. So if my first 90-minute chunk is for programming, my second one should be of something else, so that my mind gets some time to refresh itself, right? So when I work on task B, which is very different compared to task A, when I come back to task A in my next 90-minute chunk, I'm refreshed. I'm not bored, or I'm not stressed or burnt out because I worked on that same thing for too long, because I did programming or mathematics for too long. Something else that the author shares is transitional moments, the importance of transitional moments. These moments between tasks, or these moments right before we transition off into a break, the author shares, are just as important as the 90-minute work chunks and the 10 to 30-minute break chunks. So the author shares these transitional moments are really when, it's going to sound like a cliche, but these moments are when we should embrace serendipity. We should we should trust that the moment we are existing in, it's going to take me somewhere valuable. It's going to lead me someplace worthwhile, which is going to equip me for my next task or my next break better. So let's say I finished working and now I'm going to get coffee, or if in a world outside of the pandemic, right, when we go back to our regular normal lives, if I'm standing in the line, instead of scrolling on my phone, scrolling the news or social media, instead I should, just be there, be present, say hi to the person next to me in the line. Lastly, something that the author studied after interviewing many people is how most of us, we don't breathe right when we're working on something. We either hold our breath or we don't inhale or exhale completely. And then when we do, we either sigh or we yawn. And that's just because we're like so focused on doing something. But when we don't breathe properly, it doesn't help us with concentration, with the focus. So we're not able to get into that flow of the 90-minute work chunk, right? So the author suggests that we focus on our breathing, because it not only helps the oxygen circulate better, so all our limbs, my eyes, ears, they're gonna need the energy that they need for working, but they're also gonna relay information back to my brain that I need, right, when I work on something. So yeah, our breathing is important, and to that I'm gonna quickly add posture also so important, especially given a lot of us are working remotely, right, on our dining tables instead of our office tables. Posture is important, helps with the same flow of oxygen and the flow of information. Let's talk about harnessing similar frequencies for spirituality. Okay, again, same deal. Every day, this wonderful rhythm of every day also helps us in our spiritual journeys. Again, this is something that I added myself, right? It's not found in the self-development book, but meditating daily is important, because meditation is kind of like some other exercises, which if we repeat daily, that's the best way to derive benefit from them. And not just meditating daily, but we also need to make sure that we break our meditation sessions or our sadhana into chunks. So I introduced a new word here, sadhana. It's a Sanskrit word, which means to reach out or to apply yourself to something. So the kind of meditation, spirituality, and philosophy we follow, which is Tantra, which originated in India thousands of years ago, we also use this Sanskrit word called sadhana, and that's how we refer to as meditation. So yes, apart from meditating every day, it's important to break up our sadhana or meditation practice into chunks. So let's say if I had 20 minutes today that I can meditate on, or tomorrow, I should, instead of meditating for 20 minutes throughout, it's going to be beneficial for me if I separate them into 10-minute chunks, into two 10-minute chunks. And again, it's most beneficial if the first one's done in the morning before I eat anything or before I start with my day, so that my mind's fresh. And it also works best if done again in the evening before I take a meal. Again, the importance of breathing, right? Again, breathing is a rhythm, it's a frequency that we repeat up until our last breath. And it's more than just breathing in oxygen and breathing out carbon dioxide, right? There's so much more to our breathing than just that. So the spiritual aspect of that is, yeah, breathing. It's a nice connection that I have with my own being, right? And if I notice I'm not focusing on my breathing the right way, or if I'm not exhaling the right way, like the author shared, I take that as an opportunity to ask myself, hey, what distracted you from your breathing? Or right? And what can I do to not get distracted the next time? And I think this gives me a good opportunity to get in touch with not only myself, to get in touch with my own vibrations or my own frequencies, but also of that of my environment, right? So let's say I'm driving and somebody honked at me, so I couldn't focus on my breathing or on the road ahead. That tells me that, okay, driving, this environment has many frequencies. So if somebody honks, yeah, I better pay attention there instead of focusing on my breathing. And at that point, breathing, I think, also serves in the mindfulness aspect. Right? Again, it's a good connection that I have with myself. But I think for me, the way breathing differs for me for mindfulness compared to spirituality is, again, like when I think of breathing in terms of mindfulness, to me, that's an opportunity for me to get in touch with my emotions, my feelings, and my thoughts as I shared. Right. So that I think is the mindfulness aspect of breathing. And the spiritual aspect of breathing for me, I think, is taking that opportunity to remind myself that infinite love is all there is, right? Or supreme consciousness is all there is. So, so again, just talking about breathing in terms of productivity, spirituality, and mindfulness, I think it's such an important tool focusing on our breathing that it helps us not only stay motivated, it helps us get in touch with ourselves, learn more about ourselves, about our environment, and it also helps us remind that infinite love and supreme consciousness is all there is. I think it's such an important tool, our breath. Okay, something else that the author shared that could have, made sense even in the productivity slide, but also makes sense in the mindfulness slide. Author encourages us to just do one thing at a time. Author shares there's nothing really known as multitasking, and I'll explain what she meant by that. Right. So in our daily lives, daily busy lives, in right, people value multitasking, right? I might anticipate having to work on a spreadsheet at work in the morning, but then I might end up talking on the phone or attending meetings because that's just what the environment demands of me, right? And I have to be flexible for that. But the way most of us think about multitasking is we work on something for a while, then we start feeling anxious about the other thing that we haven't started. So we start that and then we come back on the first thing, or we move to the third thing. So this, the author says, leads to something known as attentional residue. If I don't finish what I'm working on before moving on to the next task, I think it violates two things. It violates the 90-minute optimum span of attention, right? So if I move from one task to the other before finishing it, or before the 90-minute span of attention, I'm wasting my attention span. And I'm also generating this feeling within myself that, okay, I worked on something this morning that I haven't finished. So this sort of guilt or anxiety builds up as we work on things and leave them unfinished through the day. And if we have this habit of microtasking, of leaving things unfinished, this sort of attentional residue builds up, and at times it gets too much for us to bear. And that is what the author says leads to procrastination. So author says, do one thing at a time, say no to attentional residue. It's going to help us not procrastinate. Okay. Again, switching tasks mindfully, and also being in these transitional moments mindfully, as we discussed, right? When we switch tasks and when we are in these transitory moments, we need to be mindful of the kinds of tasks we do. We need to be mindful of the environment where we're in. We need to make sure that not doing much is also priority on our list, right? During these break or these transitional periods. But apart from this, I think there's another mindfulness aspect to it. I think when we switch between tasks, when we transition to breaks, those are nice little moments we have where we can ask ourselves, hey, how am I feeling after this break or after this task? Did it leave me feeling better or worse than I had thought? And if so, why? Why did it leave me feeling much better than I thought it would? Or why did it leave me feeling worse than I thought that it would? And I think these are some other ways that, again, we can get in touch with our own frequencies and also of that of the environment that we exist in. So now I'm gonna, breathe, pat myself on the metaphorical back for finishing this task. I'm gonna thank you for joining our self-development discussion. Please visit us and let us know if there are any particular frequencies that you tune into repeatedly and how you think they affect you. I'm gonna stop presenting and so that you can see all of you guys.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I just want to talk about the breath part. Several years ago, my therapist really encouraged me to pay attention to my breathing patterns. And I noticed that whenever I was feeling anxious or stressed, that my breathing was shallow and it was in my chest. I wasn't breathing deeply. It was short and in my chest. And then when I was relaxed, it was full and in my stomach. And he also encouraged me to start breathing more into my stomach. And when I did, I noticed a huge change in terms of anxiety. I stopped feeling so anxious because I was like getting that full breath, and that brings more ease into your body if you're breathing more deeply. If you're breathing shallowly, your body is sending the signal to you that something is scary, we need to run away or fight, or like it's a physiological response. So just wanted to share that first and foremost of how powerful the breath is. And also to say that I've noticed the same thing about the frequency of my day. If I am sharper in the morning, and that is when it's best time for me to do writing. If I were to try to write something right now, it would not be nearly as good because I'm tired. So yeah, I appreciate hearing that and the reminder that it is important to do what works best for you. I mean, for some people, they are more nocturnal and their like most creative time is at 11 o'clock at night or whatever. So yeah, I just appreciate that. There's this saying I really love called go where the water is warm. And I think about that a lot.
True.
So that's it.
True. Yeah. Unless you're like in Mumbai, then you'd go where the water's colder. Yeah.
Because you want to cool down.
Yeah, you want to cool down. Yeah. Something that I mean, the reason I named all of this frequencies is because it was about frequencies the whole conversation. But I think the author, like, she keeps sharing different examples where once we start looking at things as if they're frequencies, and once we keep asking ourselves how this frequency feels to me, and how does the environment get affected by my frequencies, we start noticing a lot of things. And I remember, like, each time I think about this, I think about a conversation I had with my friend where he was telling me something about one of his friends. And turns out, like, that their friendship wasn't the best in my opinion, so their frequencies weren't quite matching. And each time this friend of mine told me stories about the other friend, to me it just kept sounding like, I felt like asking, like, do you still not know that his frequencies, they don't make you feel good? Why do you keep trying to retune into that frequency? Why do you keep bringing yourself into that? So I like that the author, like, keeps repeating that point, because I think it's so important. There's so much we just don't know about ourselves, about how people and events, they affect us, we just take it for granted. We just think this is how the world works. This is how I work. I'm going to keep repeating that, even if it doesn't make me feel good. Yep. And then, yeah, as you said, we don't breathe the right way. Definitely. And I think we lose these wonderful opportunities for learning more about ourselves and about those around us, the environments around us.
Yeah, I mean, it's made a huge difference for me. I'll notice if I'm on the phone with somebody new, for instance, and my voice is coming out a little bit squeaky and my, breathing is high and in my chest, then I say to myself, oh, you're feeling nervous. There's something happening here. You're feeling nervous about this conversation with this person. And whereas before I maybe wouldn't have noticed or just brushed it off. It's brought so much more awareness into my life. And I also want to say too about the frequencies piece. To me, it signifies kind of a mystical component in the world of, frequencies is a wave or an energy, and it's a reminder that we're all a vibration, that everything is a vibration, everything is energy. And like your friend and the friend of a friend, their frequency being like a little bit weird, it's because they were not paying attention to, oh, you're going like this, but I'm going like this. It's, there's a difference. So just appreciate that I feel more at ease when I'm in a frequency that's in alignment with mine.
Definitely. Another frequency I messed up. I didn't reset my timer before we began this call. So I had like 5-6 minutes on it already. So during the first half of our meeting, I'm like, oh, we're behind schedule. I'm 5 minutes lower than I should be. So I rushed through some bits. I hope that wasn't too jarring for any of us. But that was funny.
Anybody else have anything that they want to jump in and talk about? I feel like Apurva and I are just dominating the conversation, which, is okay, but we want to give space for you.
Everybody, it's really early in the morning for them. It's their morning frequency. They want to meditate instead of discuss, I think. That's good. That's a good frequency to be on.